In the name of one God, creator, redeemer, and sustainer of our lives, amen. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. I'm so grateful for that sentence today because I don't have a clue about sheep and shepherds, quite honestly. This is the fourth Sunday. The fourth Sunday after Easter is always Good Shepherd Sunday for whatever reason. Whenever they set up the lectionary text, somebody or some committee decided, let's make the fourth Sunday Good Shepherd Sunday. And so every fourth Sunday after Easter, we sing the 23rd Psalm, and we talk about sheep and shepherds. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's something profoundly comforting about the 23rd Psalm, and I'm glad we sing it. But the reality is I don't know anything about sheep, and I don't know anything about shepherds. I think personally I'm more inclined to be a goat. Goats are more adventurous, they're more curious, they're more self-sufficient. Sheep are kind of dumb, and I don't get it that way. But realistically, I don't know anything about shepherds and sheep. I never encounter shepherds or sheep. Like the folks for whom these texts were written saw shepherds and sheep the whole time. Like their lives were that they were always there. They could observe them. I did spend some time in West Africa where I could see like just sheep and goats wandering around the village. I mean, they weren't really shepherds. So I got some sense of those animals, but I don't know. I don't resonate with it. So I don't know if I have anything important to say, quite honestly. But we can wrestle with these texts together. I was trying to think of, so I am going to invite us to wrestle with these texts, or this text specifically, together. That might be more productive. I was trying to think of a modern analogy. Like we don't, here in the Lower Mainland, we don't have a lot of sheep and shepherds. Teachers and children, bingo. I was thinking daycare workers. Daycare workers, there's a modern analogy. And specifically daycare ladies, which is not to say that men can't be daycare workers. Men can. Men can take care of 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and be brilliant at it. Men should take care of 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. There you go. But, realistically, my encounter with, we have a daycare here, and I live with, between my drive from my house in Port Moody up to St. Lawrence, there are 5 different daycares. I experience lots of daycare ladies. It usually is women who are doing this work. And I see them taking the kids out to recess and doing all this stuff, and I think maybe that's a better analogy. I see them as I'm driving up Gatonsbury, they're all out there tethered in their little toggle together in their pod, and, the daycare ladies are staring me down as I drive through the intersection, making sure that I'm not going to run, kind of veer off and mash into them or something. I don't know. So I did my own version of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my daycare lady. I am taken care of. She gives me crayons to color. She leads me out to play at recess. She makes me lie down on my mat at nap time. She maintains my emotional equilibrium. Yea, even though I walk on a busy, dangerous street, I shall fear no evil, for she is with me. She tethers me to herself, staring down the dangerous drivers. She spreads a table of snacks before me and makes sure the other kids don't steal my juice box. She washes my face and hands when it is over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Kind of works, right? Kind of gets at it in quite, a similar way. It kind of makes sense. I know some of you are like, okay, this is a feminine metaphor for God, right? The nurturing part of God. And some of you are like, yeah, all right, good. We don't get enough feminine metaphors of God. And some of you are like, I don't know, Lord is my shepherd. We have this tendency to think of shepherds as always being male for some reason. I'm not sure why. There are lots of female shepherds in the world. Women are just as good at shepherding sheep as men are, and yet in our own imagination, the shepherd tends to be always male. And I was wondering about that because it combines masculinity with nurturance, and maybe something's important there for us somehow. I was trying to think of other masculine metaphors for God, which could all be feminine as well, honestly. But the Lord is my warrior. The Lord is my guardian. The Lord is my mason, my stone builder, my carpenter. The Lord is my banker, my money lender. The Lord is my lawyer, magistrate. They don't quite resonate, right? In quite the same way as the Lord is my shepherd. There's something specifically about the nurturing, caretaking quality to that metaphor that we like. But the reason why I chafe at it is it's just like, whether it's sheep or whether it's toddlers and preschoolers, like, is there ever an image where I get to have agency? Is there ever an image where I get to be an adult, where I get to make choices and collaborate and, find my path, right? Why is it that I have to be the sheep or the preschooler in these metaphors? And there actually are other metaphors that are used in the Bible. I mean, disciple. And I think the more powerful one is Jesus calls us friend. Right? So there are metaphors for faith that do encompass our agency. When Jesus calls us friends, it's a calling to live into and be part of whatever it is God is up to in this world. I mean, it's this trust that we have what it takes to seek out the good, for others. To not just consume and be so self-focused, but to actually work to the good of the world, right? That's what Jesus is up to. He's like, I call you friends, right? So there's a good metaphor. Realistically, though, none of those have to do with today's reading. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. And so here's what he says. He does mention shepherd and sheep, but really the metaphor isn't about a shepherd. The metaphor is about a gate. Very truly, I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Right? So that's the metaphor. And then John says, Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So what didn't we understand about what I just read? Like, what was it about what I just read that is so beyond our understanding? I mean, these people know shepherd and sheep. They're familiar with these, and yet they didn't get the metaphor. Do we? So how can we get the metaphor? So again, Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate, or the door is another way of saying it. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. So let's wrestle with this together. What does that mean? What's happening in this metaphor? Why is there this emphasis on gates and doors and thieves and bandits and strangers? Sylvia.
You can ignore me.
Well, first of all, I just love your boldness by just jumping in there and being the first one. So go. You already scored points. You get a gold star for today.
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
I don't like it at all.
Okay.
So, the Jews are thieves and bandits? Anyone who doesn't come to the gate of Jesus is wrong?
Okay. So,
Yeah, the whole time you were, I was reading, I was hurting.
gotcha. Thank you for saying that. So it feels really exclusionary at some level. It has been read as if the Jews are the thieves and bandits, right? Is that really what Jesus is saying? Yeah, thank you for saying that. Other ideas? Mary?
I think he's more referring to false prophets.
False prophets. Okay, what do you mean?
Like people that claim to be leaders and following the way and that are really not living a life that Jesus would like.
Okay.
Some of our evangelical leaders these days are, living in multi-million-dollar homes and have, dozens of fancy cars, and that's not exactly what Jesus would do.
Okay. So there's still a religious overtone to it at some level. There's still a religious overtone. False prophets are leading people astray. Other ideas?
Well, there was this palpable hope for a Messiah at this point in Judaism. And I think he was referring not to the Jews themselves, but to previous figures who may have posed as Messiah. But what I find interesting is that if he is the gate or the shepherd whom the sheep recognize their voice, why did the people he's speaking to not understand what he's saying?
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the yes, so what are we missing? If they didn't understand and they're used to these things, what are we missing about it?
Surely, it's about gatekeepers.
Okay.
When we think about our world, how many gatekeepers are there? And everything. So even in our church, right? So there's gatekeepers all the time in terms of them exercising their authority. You can, about going through or coming. So when you think about that, it's an interesting one.
So that maybe the gatekeepers themselves tend to be thieves and bandits as opposed to Jesus. Jesus saying, I'm the gate, not them, I'm the gate.
Yeah.
Okay. Wally.
False prophets incite people to go a different way, a different path, like violence. Whereas Christ taught the way of peace and love. So the only way through the gate to heaven is peace and love.
Okay.
That's my interpretation.
So yeah, false prophets is inciting people to violence. Or sowing division. I have members of my family who think that Tucker Carlson is a good idea. And who also think that Donald Trump is a good idea, quite honestly, which is just baffling for me. And so there was with some Schadenfreude, I guess, that I had this week when I found out that Tucker Carlson had been fired for being too nasty for Fox. And there's something about the tone. It's more about the tone. There's this insinuation. There's always this insinuation that happens. Always this othering that happens in the tone of some of these voices. The sense that they're evil and we're right. The sense of they're up to something bad. And it's all about inciting anger, and it is about inciting division, and it is about inciting violence. And Jesus says no. And they've captured people's hearts and souls in a way that almost people feel like they are the voice, they're the true voice that I'm going to follow. Like that is the voice I'm going to listen to. And yet that voice is one of insinuation, right? Rather than Jesus who's saying, no, my path is one of loving your enemy. My path is one of redeeming the world. My path is a way of peace, right? And entering into difficulty. And so how easily it is to be misled. Somebody else used the example in the earlier service about social media, right? I mean, it's very easy to get stuck down a rabbit hole and be led in a certain sort of way. So what does it mean for Jesus to say, no, actually, I am the gate. I am the one. I am the way. And can we do that in a way that isn't othering? I mean, Sylvia, I hear your concern. I do think that often that this passage gets read in ways that, is read as if somehow, it's saying that, you need to be a Christian, you can't be Jewish, or it's read in an anti-Semitic kind of way. And is there a way of reading it where it says, no, that what Jesus is doing and what Jesus is up to, Jesus is the gate. But it's about salvation. It is about healing. It is about restoration. Anybody else? Yeah, Detlef.
I'm struck by the first quote by Lincoln in the pamphlet today. And so here you have an incident seen two separate ways. And so maybe that is also what the gate is, about how we perceive things. It can either be good or bad, or it could be indifferent. The same thing. And that's how we go through. Right? So that is even more, I think, than a gatekeeper, a physical gate, but how we perceive the world, how we go forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the assumption is that there are ideas, there are paths, there are ways of being that are dangerous for us. There are ideas and paths, ways of being that are not helpful for us, right? And what does it look like for there to be a gate, for there to be a way in which points us in direction that, we all like sheep have a tendency to go astray. We all have that capacity to get sucked into something that is ultimately destructive and is ultimately life-giving. And so what does it mean for us to actually stay focused on and be followers of Jesus, right, at some level? I liked the photo on the cover, something about the photo on the cover. It felt like there was a sense of adventure. It was a picture of a shepherd with a sheep that felt like there was a sense of adventure and a sense of possibility by being followers, like that there was something about it that I found encouraging. He's what? He's on the precipice. Is that good or bad?
It's a choice of foods, which way to go.
Yeah, it does. It looks like he's potentially on the edge, and yet it's a very sanguine kind of view. I mean, it looks like because there's a valley and you have that sense of the mountains behind, but I imagine nobody's about to fall off. We've had this conversation about sheep and shepherds and whatever. I'll just read Psalm 23 here again. Pay attention to a word or a phrase that stands out for you as we read it. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. Dave.
I shall not want.
I shall not want.
I saw a different view of that just now. I shall not be left wanting.
I shall not be left wanting. Yeah, thank you. Heather.
Restores my soul.
Restores your soul. Jody.
I can't remember the thing, but it just reminded me of a child and their parent.
Yeah, so there's this paternal, protective, yeah. How about others? Verna.
For me, it's a passage of love and hope.
So you find love and hope in hearing it. Yeah, good. Ross.
What really stuck out to me was dwell. To me it connects with the gate of we're being invited to come in and dwell someplace that could be better. And I think that's why I really feel like I can get on board with the gate being
So there's something about the gate that's invitational into a different way of being and non-exclusionary. And I love that metaphor of dwelling, which, in the book of John, abide, that notion of dwelling is really important. Anybody else? Thank you for wrestling with these texts. I think it's important to be able to do that and to be able to acknowledge we don't always understand what these texts are or what they mean, or at least for me to be able to say, I don't have a clue. But I appreciate our being able to do that together as a community.